The vote was 11 to 1. Ambassador Yuri Petrov watched the glowing symbols appear above each council seat. Red for guilty, blue for innocent. 11 red lights burned like wounds in the darkness of the grand chamber. Only one blue light flickered, from Delegate Miran, the feathered avian who had argued for 3 days that humans deserved a fair hearing. 3 days of arguments. 87 years of membership in the Galactic Accord. 14 colony worlds built with human sweat and blood. All of it meant nothing. High Arbiter Solon rose from his throne. The crystalline being was ancient beyond human understanding. His body caught the chamber's light and split it into rainbows that danced across the walls. Beautiful and cold, like everything about him. "The council has spoken," Solon announced. His voice rang like wind chimes made of ice. "The human species is found guilty of destroying the sacred moon of Tellar. The sentence is exile to the dead expanse. You have 90 standard days to remove your people from Accord space." Petrov stepped forward. His translator implant hummed as it converted his words for the 12 species watching. "High Arbiter, we have presented evidence. The colony ship was under attack by pirates. They fired in self-defense. The moon's destruction was an accident." "The moon is still destroyed," Solon replied. "Millions of Solari pilgrims can no longer complete their sacred journey. Your reasons do not rebuild what was lost. Then let us rebuild it. Let us pay reparations. Let us, you will leave." Solon's form pulsed with irritation. "The council has been patient with your species. We accepted you despite your violent history. We overlooked your aggressive expansion. We ignored warnings from our scientists about your dangerous adaptability. No more." Admiral Rosa Delgado stood at the back of the human delegation. At 58 years old, she had fought in 3 border conflicts and negotiated peace in 2 more. She knew when a battle was lost. But she also knew when to plant seeds for future battles. She activated her personal recorder. Every word from this moment forward would be preserved. "High Arbiter," Delgado said, her voice steady. "I want the council to understand what you are doing. The dead expanse has no habitable worlds. Radiation storms tear through it constantly. The stars there are dying. You are not exiling us. You are executing us slowly." Solon's crystalline body chimed with what might have been laughter. "Your species is resourceful. Perhaps you will surprise us." "We will," Delgado said. "Remember that I said this. We will." The other council members shifted uncomfortably. The Tessec delegate, a being of flowing liquid metal, looked away. The Mirani representative clutched her wing arms together in distress. But none of them changed their vote. None of them spoke. They were afraid of Solon. They were afraid of the old powers. And they were afraid of humans. Afraid of what humanity might become if given time to grow. They chose to kill humanity while it was still young. Delegate Miran flew down from her seat. Her feathers were gray with age, but her eyes were sharp. She landed before Petrov and bowed her head. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I tried. My people will remember that the council acted without justice today." Petrov took her wing hand gently. "Thank you for your vote, delegate. It meant everything." "It meant nothing," she replied sadly. "One voice against 11 is just noise." "No," Admiral Delgado said, joining them. "One voice that speaks truth is never noise. It is a seed." The council guards approached. Their weapons were not raised, but their message was clear. The humans had to leave. As the delegation walked toward the chamber doors, Solon called out one final time. "Ambassador Petrov, do you have any last words for the record?" Petrov stopped. He turned to face the council one more time. 12 ancient species who had ruled the galaxy for 100,000 years. 12 species who had just sentenced 12 billion humans to death in the name of a broken moon. "Yes," Petrov said. "I do." He straightened his formal coat. He lifted his chin. "You sentence us to death," he said clearly. "We will remember. Not just this day. Not just this vote. We will remember every species that condemned us. We will remember every representative who stayed silent. We will remember every guard who escorted us out." He paused. "And one day, when you need help, and you will need help, you will remember that you had a friend in humanity, and you threw that friend into the darkness." He turned and walked out. Admiral Delgado followed, her recorder still running. 90 days. That was all the time humanity had. 90 days to move 12 billion people. 90 days to abandon 14 worlds. 90 days to pack up 87 years of hope and carry it into a graveyard of dying stars. The Council expected humans to fail. They expected humanity to scatter and fade, to become another forgotten species in the long history of the galaxy. They did not understand humans at all. As the delegation's ship left Harmony Prime, Admiral Delgado looked back at the glittering station one last time. "Get me a secure channel to Earth," she said to her communications officer. "Priority 1. Tell them to start the Exodus Protocol." "Admiral," the officer said carefully, "we don't have an Exodus Protocol." Delgado smiled grimly. "We do now." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying with it the first spark of something the Council would learn to fear. Not revenge, something worse: determination. The last child born on Earth arrived 3 days before the evacuation deadline. Her mother named her Hope, because that was all they had left. Director Amara Okonkwo watched the birth announcement scroll across her data screen. Another human being added to the count. Another soul they had to move into the void. 12 billion people. 40,000 ships. 90 days. The math was impossible. They did it anyway. Every factory on every human world worked without stopping. They built transport ships from anything they could find. Old warships were stripped of weapons and filled with people. Mining vessels became refugee carriers. Luxury yachts became floating orphanages. "We cannot take everything," Amara told the gathered leaders on day 20. "We must choose what matters most." They chose their children first, then their seeds, their animals, their genetic banks. They chose their books, their music, their art. They chose the things that made them human. They left behind their buildings, their monuments, their graves. Captain Diego Reyes commanded the largest ship in the fleet, the New Dawn, a vessel built in orbit from the melted bones of 100 smaller ships. It was ugly. It was uncomfortable. It held 800,000 people. This ship was not made to fly, his engineer told him. It was made to survive. "Then it is perfect," Diego replied. Day 60 brought the Council's observers. 3 ships filled with aliens who claimed they came to help. They did not help. They watched with cold eyes and recorded human suffering for their masters. Day 70 brought something worse. The Council patrol fleet found a convoy of refugee ships near the border of Accord space. 20 vessels carrying 300,000 people. Families, elderly, children. The patrol commander claimed they crossed into restricted space. They had not. The commander fired anyway. 200,000 humans died in 15 minutes. Ships burst apart in the vacuum. Bodies floated among the wreckage. Escape pods were ignored. When news reached Earth, something changed. Admiral Delgado stood before the gathered fleet commanders. Her face was stone. Her voice was ice. "We will not respond," she said. "Not yet. We will record. We will remember. We will continue the evacuation. And when the time comes," she stopped, took a breath, "we will remind them." The commanders obeyed. But they understood. This was not surrender. This was patience. Day 90 arrived under gray skies. The last transport lifted off from Earth as Council observers recorded the moment. One of them, a Tessec made of flowing silver metal, asked Admiral Delgado if she had any regrets. "Only one," she said. "I regret believing your Council was capable of justice." The great fleet gathered at the edge of Accord space. 40,000 ships arranged in formation. The largest gathering of humanity in history. Behind them lay everything they had known. Ahead lay the dead expanse, a region of space where stars went to die. Dr. Sven Lindqvist spoke to the fleet through every speaker on every ship. "We are going into darkness," he said. "The Council believes we will not survive. They are wrong. I have spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Our bodies can be modified to survive radiation. Our ships can be hardened against the storms. The expanse is harsh, but it is not death." He paused. "It is a test. And humanity has never failed a test it truly needed to pass." The fleet jumped. The transition to the dead expanse hit like a physical blow. Ships lurched as they passed through the boundary. Radiation alarms screamed. The darkness outside was not empty. It was hungry. Captain Reyes looked through the view screen of the New Dawn. He saw red dwarf stars bleeding their last light. He saw asteroid fields stretching forever. He saw radiation storms painting the void in poisonous colors. "Find us a rock," he said to his navigator. "Any rock big enough to land on. We start building today." Behind him, 800,000 people waited in cramped corridors and converted cargo holds. Families huddled together. Children cried. The elderly prayed in a dozen different languages, but no one gave up. That was the thing the council never understood about humans. They thought exile would break the human spirit. They thought the void would swallow human hope. Instead, it forged something new. In the first month, they lost 30 ships to radiation storms. In the second month, they lost 100,000 people to sickness. In the first year, 2 billion humans died, but 10 billion survived, and they hollowed out asteroids and made them into cities. They wrapped their ships in radiation shielding and made them into stations. They planted seeds in artificial soil and grew food in the darkness between dying stars. The baby named Hope celebrated her first birthday in an underground colony on an asteroid called Refuge. Her mother held her up to a viewport and showed her the distant glow of a red giant star. "That is our sun now," her mother said. "It is dying. But before it dies, it will keep us warm. It will give us time." Hope laughed and reached for the light. In the council chambers far away, High Arbiter Solon received reports that the human fleet had reached the expanse. He filed them away without concern. The dead expanse had swallowed many species before it would swallow the humans too. He was certain of it. 50 years later, a girl walked on the surface of an asteroid without a suit. Her name was Kira, and she had never known any home but the dead expanse. Her skin had a faint golden shimmer, a sign of the genetic modifications that let her survive radiation that would kill her ancestors in minutes. Her eyes had an extra membrane that protected them from cosmic rays. She was furnace-born, the first generation raised entirely in exile. Kira climbed to the highest point of Colony 7 and looked out at the sky her grandparents had called a death sentence. She saw 17 human stations orbiting a dying red star. She saw cargo ships moving between asteroid cities. She saw construction drones building new habitats in the void. This was home. Governor Pavel Sorokin had died 33 years ago, in the hardest period of the exile. He had worked himself to death organizing the survivors. But before he died, he left a message for the generations to come. "We were sent here to disappear," he had written. "We will become impossible to ignore." Engineer Nina Santos had made that promise real in year 15 of the exile. While searching for any resource that could help the struggling colonies, she discovered something remarkable. The radiation that killed unmodified humans could be harvested, captured, converted into energy. It was like finding gold in poison. Within a decade, every human colony had radiation harvesters. The energy that was supposed to kill them became the power that lit their cities, ran their factories, and fueled their ships. The dead expanse was not kind, but it was rich. General Kwame Asani rebuilt the human military during those years. Not for conquest, not yet. For survival. His doctrine was simple. Learn from everything that wants to kill you. The radiation storms taught humans to build shields. The asteroid fields taught them navigation. The dying stars taught them patience. And the memory of 200,000 murdered refugees taught them to never be weak again. The Wanderers were Asante's greatest creation. Nomadic fleets that refused to settle on any one rock. They moved constantly through the expanse, mapping routes that no council ship could follow. They found passages hidden in radiation clouds. They discovered shortcuts through the chaos, and they found a secret that would change everything. The dead expanse was not a dead end. It connected to council space through hidden paths, routes so dangerous that no other species had ever mapped them. But humans had spent 50 years learning to survive danger. What was one more risk? By year 50, the human population had recovered to 15 billion. They had built 200 major colonies and 1,000 smaller stations. Their ships were faster than council vessels. Their shields were stronger. Their weapons were deadlier, and the council had no idea. Their spies could not survive the expanse. The few observation drones they sent were destroyed by radiation before they could report. The galaxy's rulers believed humanity was slowly dying in the darkness. They believed this because they wanted to believe it. Kira climbed down from her viewing point and returned to Colony 7's main city. The streets were busy with people trading, talking, living. Children played in artificial parks under artificial suns. Artists painted murals of Earth on stone walls, a planet most of them had never seen, but all of them remembered. She passed a monument at the city center. It listed the names of everyone who died in the first decade. 2 billion names carved into black metal. Below the names was a single sentence. We survived so you could live. The older generation, the ones who remembered Earth, who remembered the exile, carried a cold anger in their hearts. They told stories of the Council's cruelty. They showed their children recordings of the massacre at the border. They never let anyone forget, but they also never let hatred make them stupid. Chancellor Lucia Ferreira took office in year 47. She was born on a refugee ship during the Exodus. Her first memory was hunger. Her second memory was her mother whispering, "We will make them sorry, but we will make them sorry the right way." Ferreira gathered the military commanders, the scientists, the wanderer captains. She laid out a plan that would take decades to complete. "We will not attack them," she said. "We will not invade them. We will make ourselves so powerful, so necessary, so impossible to ignore that they will come to us. And then we will show them what they threw away." The commanders agreed. The plan had a name: the long silence. Humanity would grow in the darkness, build in secret, trade carefully with species at the edges of council space, create alliances with the oppressed, and wait. Wait for the council to need them. Wait for the moment when patience became power. Kira finished her walk and entered her family's home. Her grandmother sat by the window, looking at the red star that provided their light. "Grandmother," Kira asked, "do you hate them? The council species who sent us here?" The old woman considered the question. "I did," she said, "for many years. But hatred is heavy, child. It slows you down." She smiled. "Now I just remember. And remembering is much more useful than hating." She touched Kira's golden shimmer cheek. "Your generation will finish what we started. You will walk into council space one day, and they will see what grows in darkness." Outside, the dying star continued its ancient slow death. Inside, humanity continued to rise. The merchant called himself Gray. Nobody asked his real name. Nobody asked where he came from. In the outer colonies of council space, such questions were dangerous. Gray brought rare minerals at fair prices. He paid in hard currency. He never cheated anyone. That was enough. For 30 years, the man known as Gray had lived among aliens. He spoke 7 languages fluently. He knew the customs of 12 species. He had friends in low places and contacts in high ones. He was also completely human. Agent Gray was one of 400 spies placed throughout council space by Chancellor Ferreira's intelligence service. They lived ordinary lives. They built ordinary relationships. They gathered extraordinary information, and they planted seeds. The galaxy in year 2348 was not the same galaxy that had exiled humanity a century before. The council had grown corrupt. The old powers taxed the younger species heavily. Trade routes were controlled by cartels with council approval. Anyone who complained disappeared. 3 species suffered most: the Mirani, the Tessek, and the Voluni. The Mirani were the descendants of Delegate Mirran's people, the only species that had voted against human exile. They had been punished for that vote ever since. Their colonies were overtaxed. Their representatives were ignored. Their young people dreamed of freedom. The Tessek were liquid metal beings who could reshape their bodies at will. The council feared them and kept them confined to a single system. They were essentially prisoners. The Voluni were plant-based creatures who lived for centuries. Patient and wise, they saw clearly that the council was dying from within. They wanted to build something new. Gray found allies in all 3 species that he never said he was human. He never had to. He simply listened to their complaints, offered sympathy, and occasionally mentioned that there were traders in the outer regions who might help. Traders who paid fairly. Traders who kept their word. Traders who came from somewhere called the Expanse. The word spread slowly, carefully, quietly. Chancellor Ferreira watched her network grow from her office on Colony Prime. Maps covered her walls, not of human space, but of council territories. Every trade route, every military base, every political weakness. "We are becoming indispensable," Admiral Tomoko Hayashi reported during a strategy meeting. 40% of outer colony mineral needs are now met by Expanse traders. They cannot function without us. And the council still believes we are dying. Their latest intelligence report estimates our population at 3 billion. She smiled thinly. "We have 15 billion. Keep it that way." The Ghost Fleet was Admiral Hayashi's masterpiece. 5,000 ships designed for one purpose: to be invisible. They hid in the radiation storms of the expanse, their hulls coated with materials that absorbed scanning signals. They trained constantly, waiting for orders that might never come. Or might come tomorrow. In year 2349, a council patrol ship made a navigational error. Its crew got lost in a radiation storm near the expanse border. When they emerged, their instruments were damaged. They drifted, and they found Colony 17. The patrol commander expected to see refugee camps, dying people and broken ships, the last gasps of a dying species. Instead, he saw a city of 2 billion people, towers of metal and glass rising from an asteroid, shipyards building vessels larger than anything in the council fleet, children playing in parks while cargo ships moved overhead. His crew recorded everything. Then they tried to run. Human ships caught them easily. The patrol vessel was brought to Colony 17, and its crew, 4 Solari and 2 Tessek, were escorted off their ship. They expected execution. They got dinner. Admiral Delgado, now 160 years old but kept alive by human medicine, sat across from the terrified patrol commander. She smiled. "You expected to find corpses," she said. "Instead, you found a civilization. How does that feel?" The commander could not answer. "We are going to let you go," Delgado continued. "We are going to let you take your recordings back to the council. Tell High Arbiter Solon that the species he sentenced to death sends its regards." The patrol ship was released. When the commander reached Harmony Prime and delivered his report, High Arbiter Solon reviewed the recordings personally. He watched the cities, the ships, the children, then he deleted the files. "This is clearly fabricated," he announced. "The stress of being lost in the expanse has damaged their minds. They require rest." The patrol crew was quietly retired. Their recordings were erased. The council continued believing exactly what it wanted to believe. Agent Gray heard about this through his network. He sent a message to Colony Prime. "They know. They choose not to know. They are afraid." Chancellor Ferreira read the message and smiled. Afraid was good. Afraid meant they sensed the truth even as they denied it. Afraid meant the time was almost right. She opened a channel to Admiral Hayashi. "Begin moving the Ghost Fleet to forward positions," she ordered. "The Marani leader, Speaker Ren, is ready to make her move. When she does, we move with her." "Understood, Chancellor." "And Admiral, when this begins, there is no going back. We will either win or lose everything." Hayashi's reply was instant. "Ma'am, we lost everything 100 years ago. Now we take it back." In council space, the old powers continued their games of politics and profit. They did not notice the shadows gathering at their borders. They did not hear the silent fleet approaching. They would notice soon enough. The rebellion began with a song on 12 Marani worlds. At exactly the same moment, voices rose in an ancient melody. It was a song of freedom, forbidden for 70 years. Singing it meant death. Millions sang it anyway. Speaker Ren stood on her homeworld's capital balcony and declared what everyone already knew. The Marani were no longer council subjects. They were free. Within hours, the Tessek announced their independence. Then the Voluni. Then 8 smaller species who had suffered in silence for too long. The council responded exactly as everyone expected. High Arbiter Solon mobilized the Grand Fleet. 3,000 warships launched toward the rebellious territories. They would crush this uprising within weeks. They would make examples of the traitors. They would restore order. They left their homeworlds defended by only a skeleton force. This was the moment humanity had waited a century for. Admiral Zura Okonkwo commanded the primary assault fleet. She was the granddaughter of Amara Okonkwo, who had organized the original Exodus. She had grown up on stories of Earth, of exile, of survival. Now she would write the final chapter. The Ghost Fleet emerged from hidden passages throughout council space. 5,000 ships appearing where no ships should be. They had traveled routes no council navigator knew existed. Paths through the expanse that humans had spent decades mapping. They were already inside before anyone could react. Admiral Hayashi broadcast on all frequencies. Her voice reached every inhabited world in council space. "We come not to destroy, but to remind you that we survived. We return not as beggars, but as equals. The dead expanse is not our grave. It is our forge. Humanity has returned." The council military bases responded with confusion and terror. How had humans appeared behind their lines? How had they built such a fleet? How had they survived at all? There was no time for answers. Human ships moved with precision that came from generations of training. They did not attack civilian targets. They did not bomb cities. They systematically disabled military stations, captured weapons platforms, and destroyed the Council's ability to project forced. It was not war. It was surgery. High Arbiter Solon received the news in his chambers on Harmony Prime. For the first time in his endless life, the crystalline being felt something unfamiliar. Feared, he opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "This is High Arbiter Solon. I demand to speak with your commander." The response took only seconds. An old woman's face appeared on his screen. Her hair was white. Her skin was lined with age. But her eyes were the same eyes that had watched him pronounce humanity's death sentence 103 years ago. Admiral Rosa Delgado was still alive, and she had been waiting for this moment. "High Arbiter," she said. "How pleasant to see you again." "Admiral Delgado, you wish to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Delgado's laugh was cold. "You sentenced us to extinction. Your patrols attacked our refugees. 200,000 died, fleeing into the expanse. You celebrated our deaths. And now you wish to negotiate." Solon's crystalline form flickered with anxiety. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something." Delgado leaned forward. "We could destroy your worlds. We have the power. We have the right. Every species in this galaxy would understand if we erased your civilization from existence." She paused. "But we will not." Solon did not understand. "Why?" "Because if we destroy you, we become you. And you are not worth becoming." The Grand Fleet rushed back from the rebellious territories. 3,000 Council warships against 5,000 human vessels. The Battle of the Harmony Gate would decide everything. Admiral Okonkwo commanded from the Bridge of the Remembrance, a ship named for everything humanity had lost and everything they refused to forget. "All ships," she ordered, "disable only. No killing shots unless fired upon. We show them what mercy looks like." The battle lasted 6 hours. Human technology, refined by a century of survival in the deadliest region of space, proved overwhelming. Council shields failed against human weapons. Council sensors could not track human ships. The Grand Fleet was systematically dismantled, but only dismantled, not destroyed. When the Council flagship drifted powerless in space, Admiral Okonkwo sent Marines to secure it. They found the crew alive, confused, and terrified. The human lieutenant who led the boarding party addressed them simply. "You are not our prisoners. You are not our enemies. You are our message. Go home. Tell your people what you saw. Tell them that humanity had every reason to kill you and chose not to. Tell them the exile is over." High Arbiter Solon watched the reports from his chambers. His Grand Fleet, the force that had maintained Council dominance for 100,000 years, had been defeated by a species he had sentenced to death in a graveyard of stars. He had expected revenge. He had expected fire and death and destruction. Instead, the humans offered peace. This was worse. This was so much worse. Because revenge could be answered with revenge, mercy could only be answered with shame. Speaker Wren appeared in a joint broadcast with Chancellor Ferreira. Behind them stood representatives of 20 species, the founding members of something new. "The Galactic Accord is dissolved," Ferreira announced. "In its place, we establish the Federation of Free Peoples. Every species is welcome. Every voice matters. No one will be exiled for the crimes of their ancestors." She looked directly into the camera. "Even the Council species may join us. As equals, not rulers. The choice is theirs." In his chambers, Solon shattered a crystal ornament against the wall. The humans had done something unforgivable. They had won. And they had won without becoming monsters. 100 years after the reckoning, a young Solari historian stood at the entrance of a human museum. Her name was Tesha. She had traveled farther than any of her kind in generations. Her crystalline body caught the light of the dying red star that humans called home. She was here to understand. Her people had refused to join the Federation. High Arbiter Solon, still alive after all these centuries, had retreated to the Solari homeworld and closed the borders. The old Council species lived in isolation now, watching as the galaxy changed without them. But Tesha was young. She wanted to know why. Why had the humans won? Why had they shown mercy? Why had they built something new instead of simply destroying the old? The museum was carved into an asteroid, one of the original colonies from the Exodus. The walls displayed artifacts from human history. Old Earth photographs. Refugee ship manifests. A list of 2 billion names. A human guide led her through the exhibits. He was old, with the golden shimmer skin of the furnace-born. His name was Anders, and his grandmother had been born on the journey into the expanse. You came from Solari Prime, Anders said. It was not a question. Yes. To study us. To understand you. Anders nodded. That is fair. We spent 100 years trying to understand why you wanted us dead. Perhaps you deserve the same chance. They walked through rooms filled with memory. The first radiation harvester. The navigation charts of the Wanderer fleets. Recordings of Chancellor Ferreira's speeches. Medals from the Battle of Harmony Gate. Tesha stopped before a statue. It showed an old woman in a military uniform, her face carved from stone, but somehow still alive with determination. Admiral Delgado, Anders said. She died 3 years after the reckoning. She lived long enough to see us return. She said that was enough. She could have destroyed us, Tesha said quietly. I have studied the battle records. Your fleet was stronger. Your technology was better. You could have burned every council world. Yes. Why did you not? Anders was silent for a long moment. Then he walked to a window that looked out over the asteroid city. Millions of people lived here now. Children played in parks under artificial suns. Ships moved between the stars. Because we remembered what it felt like to be helpless, he said. We remembered watching our people die while the council celebrated. We remembered begging for mercy and receiving none. He turned to face her. We could have become what we hated. We could have made your people feel what we felt. But then our suffering would have meant nothing. We would have just been another empire of cruelty. Tesha felt something strange in her crystalline heart. She did not have a word for it. Her language did not include concepts like shame or redemption, but she was beginning to understand. They continued through the museum. The final room was dedicated to the Federation. Maps showed 30 species working together. Statistics showed trade, growth, cooperation. A wall displayed the Federation's founding document. Tesha read the opening words. No species shall be exiled. No voice shall be silenced. No world shall stand alone. Your High Arbiter was offered membership, Anders said. Many times. He always refused. He is afraid, Tesha admitted. He believes you will eventually seek revenge. He would. That is why he does not understand us. Anders led her outside, onto a viewing platform. The dying red star filled half the sky. It was ancient and tired, bleeding its last light into the void. We call this region the Forge now, Anders said. Not the dead expanse. It was supposed to kill us. Instead, it made us who we are. Who are you? The old man smiled. We are what happens when you take everything from someone and they choose to build instead of destroy. We are what grows in darkness when you give it enough time. We are human. Tesha spent 3 more weeks in the Forge. She interviewed survivors of the Exodus, scholars of the Reckoning, children who had never known anything but the Federation. She asked the same question to everyone. Why did you show mercy? The answers varied. Some said it was strategic. Some said it was moral. Some said it was simply who they were. But one answer stayed with her, an old furnace-born man. One of the last who remembered the journey into exile, gave her an answer she would never forget. You want to know why we did not destroy you, he said. Because then we would have become you. And you were not worth becoming. Tesha returned to Solari Prime with her research. She wrote a report that very few of her people read. She requested an audience with High Arbiter Solon. He refused, but others listened. Younger Solari, tired of isolation. They began to ask questions their elders did not want to answer. Slowly, carefully, the walls began to crack. It would take generations more. But one day, the last of the old council species would join the Federation. They would stand as equals beside the species they had once tried to destroy, and humanity would welcome them, not because humans had forgotten, but because they had chosen to build something better than revenge. In the darkness of the Forge, the dying stars continued their ancient slow death. But in the light of those fading suns, children played and ships launched and people of 100 species worked together. The dead expanse had been meant as a grave. It became a garden, and the species sentenced to extinction became the heart of a new galaxy. That was humanity's answer to hatred, life.